the most dangerous and notorious female outlaws of the Wild West. In the Wild West, it was not just men who ruled the outlaw world. Some women were even tougher, breaking the law and making their names feared across towns. They robbed, fought, and escaped like legends. Their stories are wild, shocking, and full of danger. You won't believe what they did. Number 10. Fanny Porter. When you think of Wild West outlaws, you might picture people with guns robbing banks or trains. But Fanny Porter made her mark in a very different way. She didn't rob banks, but she knew many who did. Fanny ran one of the most famous brothels in Texas during the height of the Wild West. By the time she was just 20, Fanny was already running a clean and well-managed place in San Antonio. Her business attracted famous outlaws like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, who would visit her place to hide from the law. Fanny wasn't just a businesswoman, she was smart. She was known to protect the identities of the outlaws who came to her, making sure the law never got any help from her. While many female outlaws were hunted down, Fanny simply vanished. Some say she retired rich, some say she got married. Others believe she returned to Europe. Either way, she became a legend for outsmarting both the law and the outlaws. Number 9. Poker Alice. Next up is Poker Alice, a woman who shocked everyone by making a name for herself in gambling, a world ruled by men. Born in England, Alice moved to America with her family, and after her husband died in a mining accident, she turned to poker to survive. But she didn't just play, she dominated. Poker Alice traveled all over the Wild West, from dusty saloons to big gambling halls. She was known for sitting at poker tables packed with rough men and still walking away with all the money. She had one rule, though. She refused to play cards on Sundays. But that didn't stop her from getting arrested for drinking, running a brothel, or even bootlegging. Alice lived life on her own terms, making money, losing it, and winning it back again. She's remembered as one of the boldest gamblers of the Old West. Number 8. Laura Bullion. Laura Bullion grew up surrounded by crime. Her father and uncles were outlaws, and she followed in their footsteps. By her teenage years, she had already joined Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch, dressing as a man to avoid attention. Laura wasn't just hanging around. She took part in robberies and heists, helping the gang steal thousands of dollars. She was clever, changing her looks and moving from town to town. After serving time in prison, Laura managed to step away from crime, finding regular work. But even in her quiet years, she carried secrets. She was one of the few people who knew the true identity of Etta Place, Sundance Kid's mysterious partner. Laura's story mixes danger, survival, and mystery, showing how the Wild West could change a person's life forever. And speaking of mystery, the next outlaw on our list carried one of the most secretive stories of all. Number 7. Etta Place. Etta Place remains one of the biggest mysteries of the Wild West. She was the partner of the Sundance Kid and part of Butch Cassidy's famous gang, the Wild Bunch. What makes Etta so mysterious is how little people knew about her. No one knew where she came from, and after her time with the gang, she disappeared without a trace. Etta wasn't just a girlfriend standing on the sidelines. She traveled with Sundance and Cassidy all the way to South America. Some stories say she helped in robberies, others believe she simply took care of the gang. After a few years, records of Etta vanish. Some say she returned to the US, others believe she died overseas. To this day, no one really knows what happened to Etta Place, and that's what keeps people talking about her. Number 6. Belle Starr. Belle Starr, also called the Bandit Queen, made a name for herself by living among outlaws and helping them escape justice. She grew up in Missouri, where she knew infamous criminals like Jesse James and the Younger Brothers. Later, she married a Cherokee outlaw named Sam Starr, and together they ran with horse thieves and bandits in Indian Territory. Belle always wore fine clothes, rode horses like a pro, and even carried 2 pistols. People say she organized shelter and hideouts for criminals, making her a key player in outlaw life. Though she tried to settle down after Sam's death, her past followed her. Belle was killed in an ambush, and to this day, no one knows who pulled the trigger. Her husband, her enemies, or maybe even her own son. Her life ended in mystery, but her legend as the stylish outlaw queen still lives on. Number 5. Pearl Hart. Pearl Hart stood out in Wild West history for being one of the few women to rob a stagecoach. She wasn't born into crime. Pearl was from a good family in Canada. But after a rough marriage and financial trouble, she turned to crime to survive. In 1899, dressed like a man, Pearl robbed a stagecoach in Arizona with her partner, Joe Boot. What made Pearl different was that after robbing the coach, she gave each passenger a little money to get food when they reached town. She was quickly caught, but during her trial, the jury was charmed by her story and found it hard to convict her. She was jailed for a few years and then pardoned. After leaving prison, Pearl mostly disappeared from history, with some saying she joined a Wild West show and others claiming she lived a quiet life on a ranch. Up next, we meet a woman who wasn't just known for crime, but for her deadly skills on horseback. Number 4. Sally Skull. Sally Skull was one of the toughest women in Texas. She could ride horses better than most men and was deadly with a gun. Sally was known for doing things her own way. She traded cattle, moved goods, and some say she even smuggled weapons. Her life was full of drama. She was married 5 times, and 2 of her husbands died in very suspicious ways. People whispered about her quick temper and said she was not someone you wanted to cross. Sally was also known to wear men's clothes and always carried pistols on her belt. Some stories claim she was involved in crime during the Civil War, moving stolen goods. In the end, Sally simply vanished, with no clear story about how she died. She left behind a scary but fascinating legend. Number 3. Rose Dunn. Rose Dunn became famous when she was just a teenager. People called her the Rose of Cimarron. She grew up in Oklahoma, and her brothers were already involved in outlaw life. Through them, she met George Bitter Creek Newcomb, a wanted member of the Wild Bunch gang. Rose was only around 15 when she fell in love with him. She wasn't just a girlfriend, she got involved in crime too. The most famous story about her happened during a shootout in 1893. U.S. Marshals surrounded Newcomb and his gang, but Rose bravely ran through bullets to bring him a rifle. People said she even fired shots herself. Despite her wild years, Rose's life took a big turn later on. She married a normal man and settled down, proving some outlaws could walk away from danger. Number 2. Lillian Smith. Lillian Smith became famous not for robbing banks, but for being one of the best shooters in the world. She joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show at just 14 and amazed crowds with her skills. Lillian could shoot faster than most men, and people quickly noticed her. She didn't like being compared to Annie Oakley, another famous sharpshooter, and their rivalry became well known. Lillian traveled around the world performing, but her fame didn't last forever. Later in life, she moved around and performed in smaller shows. Even though her time in the spotlight faded, Lillian proved women could be just as skilled and even more daring than any man in the Wild West. Number 1. Madame Moustache, Eleanor Dumont. Eleanor Dumont, called Madame Moustache, was one of the most famous gamblers of her time. She arrived in California during the gold rush and became known for dealing blackjack. Her nickname came from a small line of hair on her lip, but people also knew her for her charm and class. Eleanor ran her own gambling rooms, always dressed nicely, and didn't tolerate troublemakers. Sadly, her life took a bad turn when she fell for a conman who stole her money. After losing everything, Eleanor chose to end her own life. Her story shows the Wild West was as full of heartbreak as it was of fortune. And there you have it. Fierce women who faced danger head-on and became legends.